you're a coach as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've been an instructional coach for 8 years.
Can you explain a little bit about being a coach? Well, yeah.
Yeah. So coaching looks different depending on, am I coaching a general education teacher or am I coaching a special education teacher? I think the skill sets are often foundationally the same, but the application is different, right? So right now I'm in three schools. One is SEL, which we would consider like a formerly emotionally behavior disturbed, self-contained outplacement. And the two other schools are high support needs autism programs that are also self contained. So 12 to 1 to 2, 12 to 1 to 6, depending on
Mm,
the state. Coaching looks like a lot of things. It looks like classroom management. It looks like building relationships, increasing teacher capacity, making sure that instruction is reflective of the kids that are in that space, where it's culturally relevant, where it's trauma informed, where it's disability informed. And then we take it in lots of directions because every teacher coming in for coaching is in a very different place.
mm. So is this is through this is online coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I have coached in person for the majority of my career when I was in the classroom.
Hmm.
And then when I started working for myself as of like last fall, I was like, I think I could still offer this in a virtual format. And it's been going really great.
That's awesome. So what made you decide to start your own coaching business?
Oh, I think I love working with teachers. I've always been in communities with teachers. I've run like secret special education and general education support groups like on the DL for years. Like right now,
Yeah.
I have two special education groups that I run where two different districts where I'm like trying to give them information that they are not getting from the district. I'm
Hmm.
trying to inform them of like, here are the resources you can give to families. Here are your rights. Here are your students' rights. Here's how you problem solve that situation where a kid is not getting a one on one and that kid desperately needs a one on one. And you have 2 years of data to show that that's what the kid needs.
Yeah.
I think at the heart of it is because I believe teachers need support. I think we think that teachers have mentors, but I think teachers are often just thrown in after they do their teacher prep program and we're saying like swim.
Yeah.
And then oftentimes they might be able to swim or doggy paddle for a little bit and then they start drowning because the waters get choppy. The kids are coming in with new needs or they need skills that they don't have as educators yet.
Yeah. What are the new needs that you noticed that are teachers are dealing with now as a coach?
Mm, I think that's a really good question. I think some of the needs are kids have much shorter attention spans and they're expecting things to be real in a
Hmm.
way that they don't want to do a worksheet anymore, man. Like
Right.
they're like this. What does this have to do with anything? I would say 10 years ago, every kid might have had a cell phone, but they weren't on social media in the same way.
Hmm.
So now kids as young as like third grade, they know what's going on, and I don't. A lot of them are coming in not just with knowledge about what's going on in current events, whether it's the news or what's going on worldwide. A lot of them are coming in with misinformation and disinformation that they've now been fed
Yeah.
online. And teaching through that is very difficult.
Yeah.
Um, I think also parents and schools are seeing a huge rift that like is more than 100 years old at this point. We've seen this kind of happen over and over and over again since the 1800s, where we blame parents for kids' needs instead of saying like the system is the problem, the system that is not supporting families and is not supporting our teachers.
That's right. I always feel like it's rigged. I feel like the system's rigged. I've said this before in another podcast, but I feel like the system's rigged. It's we don't get the resources. We don't get what everybody knows that we need. We don't get that help, and it almost seems as though the system is setting our kids up to fail. That's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, it's not broken. The system's working exactly as it's designed to. It's designed to specifically push out. One, it's designed to make things really hard, and it's designed to not fully educate our kids. It's designed to not make them critical thinkers. It's designed to break them and break them in like we wouldn't even break in like our own dogs the way we expect kids to just sit down, shut up, pick up a paper and a pencil. And then when you throw in the disability part on this, schools are actively trying to claim that we're including kids more, but then teachers, to kind of the coaching question, I think teachers are like, what am I supposed to do now? I have kids who used to be in the separate environment. They used to be segregated into a special education classroom, or they were in an outplacement, or these kids would not have traditionally been with these behaviors, like the external manifestations of their disability in my
Yeah.
classroom. And there's not increased staffing. There's not increased training. No
Mm-mm.
one's doing co-teaching. Like
Mm-mm.
districts don't want to fund co-teaching because that requires a lot more resources.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're like, what am I supposed to do when they're promising families inclusion? They're promising families kids with all kinds of needs can be in the general education environment, which is always the goal. But then the teacher's like, I'm one person and I'm wearing 1,000 different hats and I'm already drowning.
Yes. Yes, that's what I see as well. I see that with my teachers I work with. I see that, they have some real needs. Like, okay, here I am with a class of 25, let's just say 25 students, and five of them go to RSP, and they have different eligibilities, and then three of my students go to therapy, twice a week, and they go see their therapist down, in another room, and I got to teach everybody. And how do I meet their needs? And it's just me. And what
And
do I do?
differentiation is a dirty word to me at this point. I feel
Yeah.
like we're gaslighting teachers because we're just saying differentiate, like boop, magic. And we're not showing them how to do differentiation in a way that's like effective. And also, teachers, I think, often are made to feel like they can't advocate for the needs of their kids. So, like, there's a point where you're doing everything you can in your general education classroom, and that's not enough. And you literally can't do everything for every single kid. And I think a lot of the strength lies in when you have a team at a school that fully is like, everyone is going to do their part really, really well, and we're going to have really open communication. And so the like alignment between the special education team and the general education team needs to be really strong. But like social media and the education TikTok and whatever conversation is like forcing and like pitting us against each other to be like disability versus teachers. And it's like most teachers are parents. A lot of teachers have their own kids who have needs. A lot of teachers believe that kids with different needs should be included. That's not what they're saying. They're saying, I would like to include them, but I also don't want to have anyone get hurt. I need to be able to get through a lesson. I need to be able to,
That's
when
right.
I do my evaluation and stuff, not be fired. Like, I think a
That's
lot of
right.
the stuff is this, and we're not being real about the fact that we need to be fighting together on the special education side and the general education side for more staffing, for more training, right? For more specialists to come in, for better contracts. What is good for teachers is what's good for students and vice versa. It's not really opposites.
Yeah. And how do we do that? See, that's the tough question, because sometimes it feels as though in a school you're surviving. Sometimes it feels like you're just surviving. You're just trying to make it through the day, you know. And yes, I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. But in a real school, it does feel like we're just surviving. And I
Mhm.
don't have the answer to that question. Like, I don't know how I could, like, today, I'll give you an example. Today, all I did was deal with behavior. That's all I did.
Mhm.
And again, any of my administration stuff done, all I did was deal with behavior. So I had a kindergarten student who didn't feel safe in the classroom. So she left the classroom. She was just all about, I had another TK student who left the classroom. So we had to make sure that they're back in the classroom. I had fifth grade girls who were, had their issues. And so we're dealing with that. Um, and we had people out today.
Mhm.
And so how do we address that? How do we, I don't know what the answer is.
I live in two worlds. I live in the what resources are we given now? What are the frameworks that we're given now? And then what are we fighting to change tomorrow or next school year, right? Or in 10 years from now. And I think about this in two different tracks all the
Mm-hmm.
time. So in the now, I think bringing the team together, having someone from special education, having the general education teacher, and having admin, analyze the needs that are happening and being like, everyone is going to have to do something that feels unorthodox. Our communication is going to have to be tighter, right? We're going to have to really establish what are we doing the elopement is a huge issue in every elementary school that I talk to right now. Huge. School avoidance has become the number one thing that parents contact me about for special education support.
Yeah.
They don't want kids are not okay after they've been through lockdown, even though we are like, lockdown was 3 years ago. We've seen, and maybe I actually want to ask you, have you seen this? Like, this is happening to every admin that I talk to, and they're like, we don't know what to do. Like, we're kids are like, we're forcing them into the school building. Kids are running out. They have like 5, 6 elopers per grade level, and this is elementary. I've taught elementary through high school. I've
Yeah.
taught 6th and 7th grade on top of that,
Yeah.
and everything is like screaming, I think, that we need to do education very differently, but we can't because this is the current model, this is the current contract.
Yeah.
So a lot of what's the coaching that I do is, what is the locus of control of the teacher? And my framework is always do less, be more flexible, and do the smaller amount that you're going to focus on really, really well. So what is the core of the lesson, for example, tomorrow? Okay, what are the acceptable responses that you're going to allow from students, right? Can a student answer verbally? Can a student answer using gestures? Can some kids have a choice to make up a cartoon about it and still demonstrate their mastery of the skill? If we give a lot more choice, we're taking the pressure valve off of this like compliance machine for our kids, especially because we're seeing huge, huge, huge rates of neurodiversity in our schools, which I know you told me I have to define neurodiversity. So, neurodiversity is literally defined by anything that's like a different brain. So, it's not just autism and ADHD and OCD, it's also PTSD. It's also personality disorders. It's also like neurological differences like learning disabilities, right? Our dyscalculia, dysgraphia, dyslexia. And what we're seeing, I think, is the system is functioning exactly as it was designed, and our kids are just crumbling. They are crumbling. And then teachers are like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know. So I'm like, okay, each day you take it one day at a time, 1 week at a time. What is locus of control? You're going to build a different kind of relationship with the one kid who's going to make your life easier in the classroom, because that kid also wants their life to be easier in the
Right.
classroom. It's not just
Right.
what is good for teachers is also good for students.
Yeah. I agree. And you have these classrooms right now. We're in March, and if the if there wasn't good classroom control at the beginning, if procedures and um, systems were established early on, we're in March, and now the students are off the hook.
Yeah.
Right now, the students are off the chain. They're doing a lot of behavior that's just out of control right now, and I had a discussion today, like, okay, what do we do as admin? I was talking to my administrator. What do we do as admin to help out? My goal as admin is never to take control. I never want to take control of the classroom. I don't want the power. I don't want the control. I want all the power to go to the teacher and not to me. Because
It will backfire also if you
yeah,
take control.
that's right. It'll totally backfire. And sometimes I feel like these classrooms where, like, I don't know, some of these classrooms might be out of control. Now the power is in my hands. Now the kids listen to me more than they listen to the classroom teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a problem.
That
Is a
you created
huge
a new
problem.
problem. Yeah.
Yes, that's a huge problem.
Well, let me ask you, are you able to coach teachers based on the contract of the district that you're in?
I'm able to coach. It's Are teachers willing to listen? Like,
There's no
that
accountability piece. Like, it's like, okay, so you get to their evaluation. That's the thing. If teachers are so burnt out that they don't want to listen, or they don't have the capacity to absorb the feedback and the modeling and the tools that you're providing.
I think it's real personal. I think that if no adult wants to be told that, you're not doing well, and this is how you do it right. Nobody wants to hear that. Like, you're not doing well. This is how I'm gonna show you how
I've
to do
seen
it
that,
right.
yeah.
And so that's the pushback. And so as a third year administrator, I'm like, okay, how do I figure out how to, they need to trust me. The teachers need to trust me, and they need to know that I have their best interest in mind. And I'm just trying to give them back their control, because
Mm-hmm.
I never wanted the control to begin with. I don't want it.
Mm-hmm.
So how do I communicate that to them? That's the part where I'm trying to figure out now in March, third year, like,
Yeah.
okay, I might have made some mistakes at this year. Maybe I took control too early. Maybe I allowed them to send me their kids and I tried to fix it. And, maybe that was a mistake. Maybe I shouldn't have allowed that to happen.
I mean, you're very reflective, but I think too, there's something to be said about like, so I've had to tell so many mentee teachers over the years that like they are doing a very poor job. Um, I think there's all the things about like using a rubric so it doesn't feel personal, and I tried it that way because that's kind of how I was trained originally to coach. What I found is like that isn't effective because at the heart of it, you have to get to why a teacher's ego is is at the like wall. It's the creating this
Mm-hmm.
wall because
Mm-hmm.
it's teaching is so personal. You're
Yep.
spending more time thinking about your students, working with your students than you do with your own family, right? Like they, as much as we're like it's a job that's like very very unique because you eat, sleep, breathe, dream about what you're going to do to make a lesson better. That one kid that like you had a bad moment with last week, like it's just constant in our minds and on our
Mm-hmm.
hearts. So I think so much of what ends up happening in coaching as it's kind of like grown over my 8 now 9 years, is really getting to know the person and being like, the reason I'm telling you this is because I believe that you can do it. I'm investing in you because I trust and respect that you have the capacity to be an amazing educator. And a lot of the things you're doing are coming from a really good place.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you were taught to do some of these techniques. Maybe they worked in the past and now they're not working. I want you to know that it's not a criticism. It's I'm trying to give you the tools because I know you can do this. It's like going from a criticism model of like deficit, which also is the same thing we want to do with our disabled kids, seeing them only in their deficits. They're not going to receive that specially designed instruction. They feel criticized.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, I know this is hard. I believe in you so much that I'm investing this time in you because I know if we do this work now, you're not going to need me in 6 months.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to figure out how to do that as an administrator on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Because I think that as a coach, you could come in, or a coach could come in, pop
Mhm.
in,
Right.
give some wisdom, and then go. And I'm there seeing all of it.
Yeah.
I'm seeing everything. I'm seeing like all the things that are like, oh, that shouldn't have been done. Why did you say that? Like, I'm seeing everything. And so because of that, I think that it makes it so hard for administrators to coach, because I'm seeing everything. And so like, you pass by the hallway and you see that same person who, like, you're like, oh man, that yesterday, it's just a weird interaction. It's a weird interaction. And I haven't figured out how to coach on a day-to-day basis. Like, I just haven't figured that out as an administrator. I With the kids, I'm good. It's just with the adults. And you talked about that ego part. That I could when I was a teacher, I remember administrators coming in and observing a lesson, and I would teach, and I thought it was going good. I was doing, and then I open up the email and it talks about like, oh, here are the things that you need to improve, and I'm like, man, delete. Like, delete. I don't hear that. I was good. um, and I could see how it's just hard. I don't have the answer to it. I'm trying to figure it out. And hopefully I can. But
I believe that you can. I think
yeah.
I was taught to coach in a really intense model. I would get observed more than once a week. I would get surprise observations. I had to record myself for the first, I think every week for the first 7 years that I taught. It's very intense. I don't necessarily recommend it, but some of the things that I've maintained from that practice are I do have people record themselves as part of their professional development. I
Yeah.
do, because I think as a teacher, to your point, you thought that you crushed that lesson. You're like, yeah, it was a really good lesson. I don't know what they're talking about. And then you see it and you're like, and the first thing you're going to usually go to as a teacher is, oh, that kid, that kid always, or like those two kids that were talking, oh, they're always messing up my lesson. And so then you come into a conversation where it's like, hey, so when did that start? What have
Yeah.
you tried with those kids? Right. And I think I have to balance the special education element with the art of teaching. I don't have it down perfect. Oh my gosh, I listen, every day is like a I'm in a similar boat but not with the same level of responsibility on my shoulders as you. It's like, I work really closely with the admin of the schools in which I coach, but it's a different special relationship with me and a coachee or a mentee, because they could say whatever in our mentor meetings. It's a
Yeah.
confidential space because they need to have that trusting relationship.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much an assistant principal or principal, and you're an exception because you have the experience and you can model it. A lot of people can't, who are in positions of like authority in
Mhm.
our schools. Um, I don't know how much that is possible for you because they can't just say anything to you. They
Yeah.
can't.
They can't. They
It's
can't.
it's just the reality. They
Yeah.
can't, like it. If I'm very upfront. I'm like, hey, if there's like abuse or whatever mandated reporter related things, or if you're going to tell me you're quitting tomorrow or in a week, that I have to report. Anything else, that's going to stay between us,
Yeah.
right? And then I report on the skills, and I'm transparent with my administrators about this. I'm like, if I am essentially telling you every single thing I talked about, I no longer have a trusting relationship. And what we're seeing, I mean, not to toot my own horn, but I'm really proud, is my teachers are crushing it. They're literally crushing it. Like, one teacher is really just working on standing still when she's giving directions, because as soon as the lesson, she starts moving around, kids are turning around to hear her, and they're getting out of their seats
Yeah.
and they're behind her. She doesn't have eyes on them.
Yeah.
Basic stuff like that. I have a whole other side of instruction where I'm doing data driven instruction, where we want to hit students' IEP goals during small group time, right? Like, the range of skill is very, very broad. And so what allows this to happen is teachers know that it's a safe relationship. I'm not going to get them in trouble, but I don't know how to fix that. And I've thought about this a lot from an admin, which is like, I wonder how it feels different to you as an AP versus a dean, because your position of power and dynamic is so different with your staff.
As a dean, um, so as a dean, I was able to connect with the teachers better.
Yeah.
They did kind of see me as a little outsider, like, oh, you still spend a lot of time with admin. You still spend a lot of time with admin, so we're gonna bring you in just this much, but it's close enough. Like, you could feel the warmth, but not you're not by the fire. You're right here.
Yeah.
You could, and so that's how I felt like, and I had a good relationship with most of the teachers as a dean, and they were able to speak to me, and they were able to really tell me things that they wouldn't tell the admin. I was like the in between.
Right.
They wouldn't. I didn't eat lunch with any of them, but
No.
they were able to talk to me as an admin. When I walk into a classroom, I could feel the tenseness with teachers that I don't have a good relationship with, or who we don't. Let's just say we don't talk as much. It's not that we have a bad relationship. I just don't really know you.
Mhm.
So I'll walk into that classroom and they don't know my intentions. They think that I'm out to get them, and I'm just out here to improve. With you delivering the instruction, I'm here to help the kids. Really, I'm not here to do anything but that. But they don't understand that,
Even
and
when you say
maybe
that, they don't get it.
yeah. And so it's tough. So I go into classrooms, I can feel the tenseness, and the conversations are very superficial with some teachers, like very like, I'm just going to keep you at a real far distance, and I'm not going to really let you in. There's a few teachers who are confident, who are good educators, who are like, I'm
Mhm.
confident and I'm good, and you can walk in my classroom anytime. You can see whatever you want. I know what I'm doing. I don't care. You can walk in. I don't care. Those teachers I have a really good relationship with. Like, they're good. Me and them are good. They're confident. But other teachers that aren't so confident, I don't know what to do with that. I'm like, okay, I'm not here to harm you or hurt you. I'm here to help you, and I'm sorry that maybe I'm not communicating it to you correctly. I don't know.
How do you normally communicate it?
Through, I say that with the teachers I have a decent relationship, maybe it's just the conversations that we have outside of the classroom. Maybe it's the conversations I have passing the hallway, or after the PD we'll talk, or we'll be out in the yard and we'll spark up a conversation, and they feel comfortable speaking with me and I feel comfortable speaking with them. And that's how I feel like they know I'm a safe person and they could talk to
Mm-hmm.
me. But there's other people who we don't really talk. We just don't talk for whatever reason. I
Yeah,
don't think it's
it's
my
not
choice,
in
but if
your
it's for
control.
whatever,
It's
yeah,
not in
but
your
for whatever
control. Yeah.
reason. And then I'll walk into certain classrooms and I know it just feels different. I could feel the differentness.
And you don't
And
know if that's from you and whatever factors they have with you. Not that you are even like doing anything, just reacting to you, right? Like, and it could be a lot of things. It could be reacting to you as a man, reacting to you as a man of color, reacting to previous assistant principals who have been like, you don't,
I have
everyone's
no
so different.
idea.
You have
Yeah.
no idea and you have no control over that. And so much of what I ended up doing, God, there's so many conversations over the years where I'm like, hey, I'm not like whoever, like, I don't know who you're reacting to, but it's not me. Like, and I'm going to keep telling you that I care about you. I want you here. I'm not being passive aggressive. I say what I say and I do what I promise. So one day you're going to trust me. And like, I will literally say that because that's because, I'm autistic. So I'm like, I just say things that I'm like very, very unable to like hide my intentions a lot of the time. I'm just like very blunt.
Yeah.
I'm also like, an Eastern European immigrant who's Jewish and from the East Coast. I get it like quadruple, got it
Hmm.
in spades. So I'm like, what you see is what you get, right? And over time, I think sometimes people will repair their relationship with trusting their leaders, and some won't. And when the ones that won't are the teachers who are actively sending their kids out the most, for example,
Yeah.
um, I pull it's you have to like force yourself onto them, and that's not fun. And I know you have to do that a bunch. I know it's not fun to be like, hey, so I've noticed in the data that you have sent out like six kids, the same six kids this week.
Yeah.
That was a big sigh. That was a
Yeah.
big sigh.
Yeah. Like, what do you do with that? Like that's a tough one. That is a really tough one. And if you look at from a parent point of view, if your daughter or your son got sent out 6 times in a week, and each time was about 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes, that's a lot of classroom time you missed.
Yes.
And then multiply by weeks, that's a lot of classroom time you're missing.
I never sent kids out.
Yeah. I
I,
never did
I,
either.
so this is what I tell new teachers. The moment you send a kid out, you have lost your power.
Hmm.
I'm like, it's different when you have to evacuate because a kid is literally unsafe. Like,
Yes.
and that is very, very different. The moment that a kid is yelling, fussing, whatever at you, and you send them out, you have opened the door. And it's very, very difficult to close that door again. So
That's right.
when we would do new teacher training, regardless of where I was at, from an instructional coach perspective, I would be like, think 5 times before you send that kid out. Because
Hmm.
now every other kid, that kid is going to go, okay, I'm going to push that button every time.
Yeah.
And then you're going to say next day, oh, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So they're going to try harder to get out because now
Hmm.
they know they can.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying like kids shouldn't have breaks. I listen for all the special education and disability affirming care in the world. Kids should have breaks, but they should be like safe breaks. The moment you're like, I don't want to deal with you, get out of my room. You have lost your power as a teacher. And there's some things about some people have kid magic and some people don't, and you can coach it. And
That's
you're,
true.
you know what I'm
It's
saying?
true.
um the moment like I've had to get really real with kids about like I've had to apologize to kids. I've had to and it doesn't hurt my ego. I've cried in front of a
Mhm.
kid before, but
Mhm.
never because I was so overwhelmed. I used to be and you know this, I used to be the teacher that walked in when my colleagues were working. I just wanted to see my kids in other classes on my prep. I'm like, I want to know what you're doing in social studies. They're
Mhm.
crawling under the tables. I walk in, they're all like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm like, hey guys,
Yeah.
uh-huh, right. And I think also it's really really hard because when you send a kid out or you lose your cool on a kid because you're human, I get it. There's so much work you've now created for yourself to repair.
Yeah.
I'm always like, I'd rather you just have a terrible lesson and that kid not leave.
Mhm.
Um, because they need to know. I'm about to say something that you're gonna have to cut out probably. But okay, here's my perspective on teaching. Developmentally, at any point, kids are coming into the classroom, and this is what I tell coaches as well, teachers that I coach. They're coming into you. They're looking for boundaries. They're looking for you to be the safe person.
Yeah.
The moment that you don't know every kid's triggers, you don't know every kid's history, you don't know every kid's needs, whatever, whether it's disability, trauma, culture, you don't know. But you have to be the big dog first. Big dogs are not scary dogs. Big dogs are guard dogs.
That's right.
Okay.
That's
And
right.
then over time, because they now see that you have their back, you're not going to let anything happen to them. You're not going
Mhm.
to let other kids bully each other in that
Mhm.
space. Over time, it goes from my classroom to our classroom.
Mhm.
I mean, I've had kids, again, K through high school, alternative ed, right? I've had 6'8" guys like, who's this? Da, 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 da. And I'm like, I'm the crazy bee that's gonna make you
Mhm.
clean up the kitchen. And when I come back, this has to be cleaned up. And then I walk away. I'm in control. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna let you rile me up. Next thing you know, this kid, his name is Brandon, is he's a dad now. He's got a job. I'm so proud of him. He literally he's like, I feel safe with you. Like I tried
Yeah.
to push, and I
Yeah.
hit something solid. The number of times I had, the girl that likes to talk back, and I send everyone to independent work, and I go over there and I'm like, hey, so I know you're used to making people think that you're really scary and you're tough. And I think all that might be true. You're really tough, but I also think you're really smart. So you can either work with me and you can kind of like show people how smart you are, or you can continue to do what you're going to do and you're going to look foolish. I don't want that for you. And I just walk away.
Yeah.
I just walk away. I'm like, you got to call kids on their bluff, but
Mhm.
not everyone can do that. It's not a flex. It's like I fully am backing up what I'm saying. I know this is a highly capable child, a child who's capable of anything. They're like, wait, I can't. You calling me out privately though? I'm like privately, like
Mhm.
like hey, you could do all this. You're not going to scare
Yeah.
me. I'm gonna be
Yeah.
here.
And I think it goes back to showing them that you love them and you care for them.
Yes,
If you love them and you care for them, then you're gonna stand in the way. You're gonna stand in the way and not allow certain behaviors to happen.
ever.
Yeah, and that's what it comes down to, you know. And I like that idea of like you have to be the guard dog. The
Mhm.
big dog is the guard dog, and that's true. You
You're
have
not
to
the
keep
Chihuahua. You're not the
safety.
yip yip yip,
Mhm.
yip, yip,
Nope.
yip. You're not doing that because they tune that out. You seem
Hmm.
reactive.
Yeah.
This is our turf. No, thank you.
Yeah. And when I was a classroom teacher, I always made this point. I was like, okay, look it. I handle everything in this classroom. Everything goes through me. Everything goes through me. All this behavior goes. I'll tell you what doesn't go through me, and I'm gonna send you out. It's when it's a criminal offense.
Mhm.
If you do something that's a criminal offense, that's out of my hands now. And I'm a
Mhm.
mandated reporter.
Mhm.
And I want a job. I'm gonna
Mhm.
just be honest, guys. My job is important to me. I need to feed my family. So when that happens and I see that, I have to report it to admin. And it becomes out of my hands because this might be a criminal offense.
Yep.
So that's the only time that you will ever see me send you out of here
Mhm.
is because it's a criminal offense and I'm protecting myself and my
Mhm.
family. So I got to do it, guys. So don't ever put me in a position where I have to send you out because you're doing criminal offenses in my classroom. Don't ever put me in that position. Oh, okay, Mr. Vergara. All right. And that was my talk. I was always that. I made it real clear out the gate. And they felt that I was a safe person. They felt
Yes.
that I loved them and I cared for them, and that's the bottom line. Make your presence felt. You mentioned the teacher who you're coaching that stood still.
Mhm.
That's all about presence. Let's
Mhm.
have a presence in this classroom. Stand still. Stand still. Feel that presence.
This is
Definitely
your
feel it.
classroom. And I think to, again, things you might have to edit out. I think we've gotten to a point where we're trying to do collaborative classroom management too early. I think we're giving away authority before we've established a sense of trust and safety. And what ends up happening, especially with older kids, but this is true for younger kids too, they don't feel like they're walking into a space that anybody owns.
Hmm.
So it's not a safe space. So what am I turning over to them? I haven't established a safe community. I would always say we're one team, we're one family in here, right?
Hmm.
So when you're done your work, that's great. Did you make sure that everyone at your table
Right.
also got it right? I was like, we don't move on until all of us have moved on. And so you're
Right.
building in things like collectivist values, right? You're
Yeah.
building in that we look out for each other. If Isaiah wasn't doing his homework, I'd be like, Dorian, get your boy. You got to sit and do his homework with him because he's not going to know how to do the lesson, right?
Yeah.
I would never assign busy work. Like I had colleagues who would assign homework for completion. I'd be like, I don't get what the point is. The kids see right through that. So I'm building trust. I'm going to review anything I give you. I'm going to review with you. I
Hmm.
value your time. Don't play with my time, right?
Hmm.
I think a lot of teachers in a 74% white field come in with this concept of the kids are just going to be so sweet and they're going to sit there and they're going to want to know what to do. And I'm like, have you met children? Have you
Hmm.
children are going to test boundaries because that is their job developmentally. They're exploring. I think they want to feel independent. They want to feel important. They want to feel seen. They want to feel heard. But they also need to know that there's a limit that's safe. Otherwise, well, if I can push any boundary, that means anyone else can do whatever they want to. That is an anxiety that
Yes.
so many kids feel. So I always tell teachers I coach, first is your classroom before it becomes our classroom. And at the end of the year, the goal is always it's their classroom because they're managing themselves,
That's
because they're
right.
invested in their learning, and you've established a classroom community. This applies also to special education environments. It just looks different sometimes because of the level of need, if there's intellectual disability involved, if there's all kinds of other co-occurring comorbid conditions.
Yeah.
But you have to start out being that safe, firm, warm demander. If you're not that warm demander, the thing is you could be the nicest, sweetest, whatever, you could bake cupcakes, you could sing songs all day. You don't demand anything of your children and they can feel it.
Hmm. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem because
Yeah.
there are a lot of people. There's a lot of people, not just teachers, instructional aides, campus supervisors, people that just supervise the kids are just nice,
I'm
and
so
they don't.
tired of nice. Don't be nice. Be
Yeah.
kind.
Yeah.
Kind is like as an educator, kindness is I see you, I love you just because I already want to get to know you.
Yeah.
You are capable, you are smart. And also, I need you to show me that you are able to do certain things that I know you can, which I think is the same approach I take in coaching adults. It's like, I know you are capable. I know you are
Mhm.
smart. I need you to show me that you're capable because I believe that you can do this.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. That's right up my alley. I totally agree with you. And yeah, that's right up my alley. Can we talk a little about special education? I know
Sure,
that's one of your passions.
sure.
Let's
One of
bring
my
up
passions, I taught special education for 12 years, and now I work as a special education advocate for families. So,
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
I know
and
you talked to Ria, who I also love dearly.
and you guys had something going on, right? Like a live
Yeah,
event or something like that. What? Tell me about that live event. What was it about?
so Ria made a program to train families on how to be their kids' best advocate in special education. There's so much that families like need to know. And even if you have an amazing administrator like you who has all this experience, the system, the district will often take advantage, incidentally or purposely, of parents not knowing their rights.
Yeah.
And our low income working class families are the ones that are taken advantage of the most.
Mhm.
Having taught for 2 years in a tier 4 school, the opposite of a Title 1, right? This is the most affluent elementary school in an incredibly affluent city, 77% white, no, not free and reduced lunch. Like my world
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
all, I was,
That's a whole different world. That's a whole
wow.
different world. Yeah.
And seeing what families who have means, who have the ability to bring a lawyer to a meeting, who knew their rights like like nothing,
Mhm.
could do for their child versus our families who they might not speak English. They might need an interpreter. There might be a single parent or guardian or grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle, whoever. The world, I always knew it was like very, very different, but I've now lived it as the case manager and the
Mhm.
special education department chair and the 504 coordinator,
Yep.
and so RIA made this program to empower all families about the basics that they need to know. They need to understand how to read an IEP. They need to understand how to go to these meetings and navigate a very complicated system,
Yeah.
right? So we host an event to try and give as much information away for free for families. I go live all the time, multiple times a week, because I talk to families all over this country and also Canada sometimes
Mhm.
about special education, because I'm like, I want to tell every single family what they need to know about how to navigate the system and how to get their kid the right level of support. Our
Yeah.
kids are, especially if they're children of color, especially Black and Brown and Indigenous children, are put into special education in disproportionate rates. Given far fewer resources, they're shoved away into segregated, self contained classes far more than their white peers. And this has been documented for 30 years. And part of the reason is families are like, thank you for helping me. I guess this is the best that I can do
Yeah.
because I'm trusting the school. And I'm like, you should not trust the school. You should know your rights. You should trust your teachers, what they're telling you, your administrator. But you also have to know what are the ways that you can check everything that the school is telling you if it's starting to feel like something's not adding up. And I have to be honest, it often does not add up for disabled kids. It,
Mhm.
I would say, overwhelmingly. And you, as now an administrative position, you cannot offer a family a specialized placement. You can't do that. Like, you can't offer it up on a plate. There's so much work that needs to be done to prove to the
That's
district that
right.
they have to justify that cost.
That's right.
And you can often get in trouble as the teacher, as the counselor, as the admin in a meeting. The family has to be the one who is driving this conversation and understands what the data is that the school is providing. Are there gaps in services? Is the data the right data? What is data? Like, all these things, I have to download my brain into a family. So some families want that kind of training. So Ria made this program, which is so empowering, and like, I vetted it. I love it. I want to put it in everyone's hands. And then there's families that hire me that want me to drive the whole thing. They're like, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't handle it anymore. I've had too many bad experiences, or I'm too nervous, or I just need someone to take this off my plate. And then that's when they hire an advocate.
Yeah. And then you go in there and you scare everybody and you get everything that they
No,
want.
I don't scare anybody. I don't scare anybody. I think there's really scary advocates.
There
Um,
are. There are.
yeah, they're really scary. And most of the time, my email is always like, "Hi, I know it can be really intimidating when you hear an advocate's coming to a meeting. I just want to let you know I was a teacher for 12 years. My goal is to collaborate and figure out like what's possible for everybody. Because my framework is we should not put anything on an IEP that cannot be done with fidelity. That's not feasible in that environment. So
Mhm.
when I have a family being like, I want to put 50 different accommodations, but my kid's going to stay in general education, I'm like, you're setting everyone up. We cannot do this. Like,
Mhm.
you can't do that with fidelity unless we like increase staffing then. And I'm
Yeah.
like, the school can't even hiccup about we should have a one-on-one. You as the family have to be the one being like, hey, it feels like this plan
Yeah.
would be possible if my child had a dedicated person, or if they had a special class part of the day, maybe not the whole day. There's ways to navigate this that I'm like, I think families don't know how much of a gag order district employees often have on what they can say to families, even if they want to say everything.
Yeah. I don't even want to nod with
No.
you as you're talking.
You're like,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. Yeah,
That's
you can't.
funny.
And I think the number one thing that families don't know is that a lot of time, school, like district staff, Like school staff don't know either. They don't know the law either. If I was to like if I was to like quiz you on special education law, and you are amazing, I've like looked at all your work, you'd be like, I don't know like more than 50% of this. Like it's not my
Mhm.
bag. It's not my lane. I don't know. Right. If I were to ask special education teachers in this country, and I have, were you trained on the law? Most of them would say no.
No,
They don't know either. And so
no,
coming into a meeting angry is not my vibe. That doesn't work for anybody. I think we
yeah,
need to create the right fit. So again, it's always what is good for teachers is good for kids. What's good for kids is good for teachers. That it's
hmm,
one thing. It's not actually pitting everyone against each other.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I sit in IEPs. I sit through all the
That's your
IEPs,
job.
and um, it's I just got thrown in there. Like you get a little training, and you just get thrown in there, and you don't
Here's a
know what's going on.
PowerPoint. Boop boop boop.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, okay, I got to run this IEP, and you're confused. You're confused, and it's a good thing. I have a great team.
Yeah.
I have a great team. I have a great psychologist. I have a great RSP teacher, a great speech SLP. She's
Yeah.
amazing. I have a great everybody is great. These people have helped me
Yes.
understand everything. Like, okay, oh, that's what we're supposed to do. Oh, okay, that's what we could offer. Oh, this is what we okay, I get it. Um, they help me so much. And so I'm sitting through these IEPs and like you're saying, some of these parents don't know what's going on. They have no clue.
Nope.
They're just grateful. Like
Yes.
you were saying, they're just grateful. And they just kind of go along and um and I try my best to look out for the kids. Like, all right, look at
Of course you do.
we need to look out for these kids. We need to make sure to look out for these families. We're not going to try to dupe anybody. We're not duping anybody. We're
No.
giving them what they need. And if they're asking for something, we'll pause it and I'll go ask my LRE. I'll go
Mhm.
ask to see if it's possible. How do we make this happen? Um, and it's such a learning process, and it's taken me time. But I can see parents who've never been to any IEP meeting, and they're thrown in there, and they have no clue of what's going on. And that's a huge issue. And I feel like
And
you and Ria,
I'm not gonna pretend like also on the flip side, you don't have parents who are asking for truly the impossible.
yes,
And
that too.
I think there's advocates too who will be like, oh yeah, sure, we're gonna get you whatever you want. And I'm like, it's not gonna be done with fidelity. It's not gonna be like I'm not gonna set up a system where again, if it's bad for the kid, it's bad for the teacher, right? The teacher cannot do these things with fidelity, not because they're not trying, it's like physically not possible,
Yeah,
right? Without increasing staffing or changing part of the kid's schedule to be in an environment part of it. There's like some factors that we can kind of change to make things
yeah,
more doable. But like I'm not setting up the school to like in a month we're gonna come back and like you're not doing any of these things with fidelity. You're not following through. And then the kids also not benefiting because the things are not being done with fidelity. Like
mhm,
that's I think a lot of advocates I've realized I didn't know this. I had advocates that came to my I never had advocates in my meetings when I taught Title One. That was not a thing. I'd be like, what? I would go to other people's meetings my entire career for free because that was my
yeah,
way of giving back, right? Um, and then when I was teaching at the school, that was a tier four, very affluent, highly litigious community that
yeah,
has amazing families. And you show up to a lawyer to a regular IEP meeting, and I'd be like, what? Right. And I have to be honest about what are the it's not my lack of desire to make things work. At the end of the day, if we're putting things in a legal document that are not going to happen, who's going to suffer is the kid.
yeah. It's a good point. That's a good point. I feel like you're
You're
doing
like,
good
I'm
work.
gonna not say anything.
Yeah, no, yeah, I feel like you're doing good work. I feel like that, you know, empowering the parents. That's so important. That's so important. I feel like you're doing good work, and I feel like we need more of that. And I'm in a position where I'm an administrator. I just I can't. I'm an administrator, and
Just
that's it. Like I
there'd
know
be
what.
so many times where I would meet as the special education department chair with the principal. I'd be like, okay, so you can't say that, so I'm gonna say it. Okay, great. And they'd be like, okay, but like you have to say it in a way that's not gonna get me in trouble. I'd be like, I got you. Okay, we're gonna like figure
Yeah,
it out. And like, um, it's hard because I've worked for admin that you remind me of who are like awesome, and you're like, okay, like let's use the system that we have to get our families the right supports. And I've worked for admin who are like, I need you to be quiet in all group spaces and never say anything. And I'm like, yeah, see, like you don't get my labor without my advocacy. Like you
Yeah.
get me as a whole person. Um, and I think that's part of it is like I will always fight for our kids. I will
Yeah.
always fight for what's right for our kids, specifically our disabled children. So like, sorry, and as an employee, I'm a huge pain in the butt of my admin because I make them do their jobs. It is
Mhm.
terrible, but I will also do so much more than just my job in return. I am
Yeah.
like the best special education department chair to have because
Yeah.
I will go and like you have your elopers, I will have my team go and get the elopers so you don't have to worry about it. But then in turn, that means you need to get the professional development training to train the staff to stop triggering my elopers,
Yeah.
right? Like we stay in our pockets to meet the same goal.
Yeah. That's a good point. That whole triggering elopers, that happens a lot. That happens a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You ready to wrap up?
Yeah. So three questions.
Okay.
Three questions that you could, three tips that you could give to future educators.
Three tips.
Three
Okay.
tips.
Okay. I would say if you're bored, they're bored.
Okay. That's a good point.
I would say if you're starting to realize that you're burnt out, make a plan to leave because I think if you're not good to yourself, you're gonna not recognize yourself with your kids. The point
Mhm.
is not to be a martyr and to survive teaching.
That's
Kids
right.
deserve teachers who can show up really well. So if you're starting to reach the end of your rope, start talking about an exit plan, whatever you got to do, because it will eventually impact your students if you're not doing well. Like it's just straight up, you can't force yourself into coming out of burnout. Once you hit that point, start coming up with a plan. If it's like time off, if it's FMLA, if it's exploring a different position for a while, right? But kids deserve teachers who can fully show up for them.
Yeah.
Don't treat teaching like something that you're surviving. It's not war. Um, and three, what would be my third? I would say um, treat kids like they're your own kids.
That's
Um,
right.
I think at the end of the day, even if someone doesn't understand what you're doing, remember that these are someone's kids and see your nephew, your child, your whoever, your cousin in each student and be like, what would I want for them when they go to school? Um, and try to deliver on that.
Yeah.
So and
Absolutely.
remember that just like your little cousin or whatever, they're going to talk back and they're going to get sassy and they're going to get on your nerves because that's what they're supposed to do.
That's right. Well, Mosh, thank you so much for joining me on the podcast. I greatly appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.